I think it's important to start paying credit to the campaign team at the heart of the Actor of the Centre. They've articulated a vision for what the continuous professional training should look like in a way that we haven't really seen in the industry for 50 years. And it is, in times of great darkness, you've got to look for a bit of the light. And in this time of phenomenal darkness and threat to an institution and a building and a charity that's been formed by so many people, I think you have to look at the incredible work that the Act at the Centre campaign team have done to remind everybody and to restate in a 2023, 4, 5 version what the Actor Centre should be all about. And in my opinion, that has to be where the campaign now moves. There are two sort of strands, if you like, of the work going forward. The first strand is to hold accountable the people who have asset stripped an institution that was paid for by working class artists, something that belonged to the workforce in our industry and has been taken off of them and has now been redesigned into a different sort of institution. I met with the chief executive, Amanda Davey, and a trustee relatively recently to talk to them about how they were reimagining their new vision of the Actor Centre. It's the first meeting that Equity has had with them since 2022. And what their line was that they were envisaging a place where emerging producers, people, actors, artists who might want to put on and present their own work, apply for Arts Council funding, would have scope and ability to do so. And that's not what was envisaged by the founders of the Actor Centre. That was not what was envisaged by our community, but all right, it's a vision. It's a vision that's got training at its heart. But when you scratch the surface of what they say, and you go into, well, have you compared it with what's offered by the new Diorama, the Royal Court, by SALT and the Stage 1 Producers Programme? There's no answer. There's a very clear failure on their part to have assessed any sort of need within our industry, within the artistic community, for training. And we have to hold them accountable for that failure. There is nothing more damning of where they are than when we look at the fact they've sold essentially prime central London real estate designed for and by actors into the hands of who knows. To rent back the biggest kind of core asset, the kind of anchor for that vision of training for a relatively limited period of time. But for people that are on the side of what is good, as opposed to people who are just not on the side of what is bad, it is incumbent on the campaign and indeed on the union to think, what do we want now? There is a cold and uncomfortable truth that the behaviour of the trustees and the charity, whether it be legal or responsible or moral or ethical or desirable, has happened. The question now is, what does an artist deserve in 2026 for continuous training, for entry to the industry, to include groups of people who are historically underrepresented? How do we build that? And the Act at the Centre campaign team in particular, Louise, Aviana, Fiona, lots of people who've been involved from the union side, have to articulate what that looks like anew, and they can only do it with your help. We need to know what we build in defiance of this new system. Let's be realistic. What's happened is something has been stolen, asset stripped, and taken away. But capitalism, the legal framework, reality allows that to happen. Where we are now is we've got to build something new and different. And the union is going to be there on that journey. We're not the single or universal source of funding. We're a trade union. We argue about rates of pay. We argue about opportunities to entry. We argue about dignity at work. We don't provide the training. That's not the role of a union, but we have a part to play. Financially, institutionally, organisationally, we have to be there. I'm not going to abandon the righteous campaign to make sure that Amanda Davey and the trustees are held to account for their asset stripping and irresponsible management and governance of an important institution. But we also have to stand by for what happens tomorrow. I have no confidence, if I'm blunt, that we are going to return ourselves to 2019 with the ability to build an actor centre as we understood it before. This is ground zero and starting anew. And we've got to find the joy in that, the goodness in that, and the excitement in that. And I suppose this is really an appeal to everybody that's in this meeting, everybody who's who's signed up to the campaign, who's affiliated and been part of it, to say, look, let's not just look at the past and how we hold people accountable, but look at the future and what we want to build. And the union's going to be there to back it and support it every step of the way. The two branches that have done so much work, but us as an institution at the centre as well. So yeah, I want to say thank you to the campaign team for all the work they've done. But I want to say to the activists, what do we build now going forward? It's a really, really big question. So yeah, thank you for having me.
Paul, Harry here. We did discuss with you that we could maybe do 5 minutes of Q&A. Are you up for that? Okay, who has a question for Paul? Yeah.
Are there still other actor centres? Where are they, and what are they doing about the future?
Might have to go again.
Are there still... Paul's an equity man. He's not going to be able to speak to whether there are other actor centres. I think the actor centre in the north closed quite quickly, didn't it? Yeah. I don't think there are any other actor centres in the UK.
Right.
There was one in New York, but it's a different setup, different format.
I just wanted to know about the UK, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Paul? Now's your chance. Yeah.
Does Equity own their own building now? I have no idea.
Does Equity own Guild House?
Yes. And how much space is there in that?
Have you got...
We do own Guild House, yes. And the space is meeting room space. It's not the space that you can run an actor centre out of. You know, it's not somewhere where you can have continuous training. They're meeting rooms that between the hours of 9 and 7 p.m. are full of meetings, negotiations, and that kind of fixed tables. It's not the right space to do it. So yeah, we are there. But I suppose that also gives us some reflection on what the value of the actor centre is. Of course, it's basically in the same block as Guild House. And we know that they've been given an awful lot of money, a huge real cash injection into Seven Dials Playhouse. That makes the defence campaign, the attack campaign, if you like, on the governance and management of the actor centre worthwhile. Because at the minute we know that the value they have been returned for selling back that lease is extraordinarily large.
Thank you.
There's a question from Mandy Fenton on Zoom. Do you want to unmute yourself, Mandy?
I can't hear. Was that somebody saying me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. That sounds sorry. You sound very quiet. Thanks, Paul. And I understand that you're in conversation along with the campaign with the Charity Commission. The Charity Commission is good that they're focused now, but they're dragging their feet a lot. And I know you said something. Who was it said something about it's like trying to attack the people with the sheep or something. But I mean, as we're all aware, they do need to be held accountable because there are laws around to protect charities from mismanagement by trustees and by, Amanda Davey, who's not a trustee. And
have you got a question, Mandy?
Yeah. I'm really conscious of how long this has been going on for, and obviously it's slid into the lease being bought. Are the Charity Commission aware of how very time sensitive this whole situation is? Do you feel?
I have to say that, so over the last 15 years of working in equity, I've dealt with lots of complaints to the Charity Commission. Every time people have been paid badly or treated poorly at work, if the employer is a registered charity, we complain. And I have never known in that time the Charity Commission to take an issue as seriously as they have done. Separate from equity, I've also been involved as a trustee, or I've been involved with trustees of a charity that was investigated by the Charity Commission. So I have an awful lot of conviction that the Charity Commission actually is taking this phenomenally seriously. In reality, you have to have a degree of step. What does the Charity Commission do? They look at the good governance of every charity in the United Kingdom. That includes charities that deal with people who suffer from sexual violence, of homelessness, of extreme poverty. They literally are presented day by day with cases where the urgency of the Charity Commission's intervention can be the life or death of a child. And they are grossly underfunded, they are grossly under-resourced, and they don't have statutory powers to just intervene in every charity that's going. So I just want to, and that's not, I'm not being, it's not an apologia for the Charity Commission, but it is a reality check on how much they can actually do. What the Charity Commission also can't do, and won't do, is stop poor choices. They're there to stop poor governance. You are allowed to manage a charity badly. You are not allowed to govern it badly. You're not allowed to govern it in self-interest. Yeah. And what I think is extraordinary actually about the Charity Commission's involvement in this particular issue is the level of detail they are going to, very, very slowly, but nevertheless going to, into what's going on at the Actor Centre or the Seven Dials Playhouse. I mean, you have it. So I've had a conversation with them. I've provided them with all the evidence of the money that equity used to give to the Actor Centre, how they put that money off by simply not invoicing for it, the fact they hadn't replied constructively to any correspondence. I wrote to them last Thursday to talk about the last meeting I had with the trustees and Davey to express my concerns about how there's a lack of analysis of the new strategy. Those are the things that they're interested in. Ultimately, I do think the campaign has to take a step back and think, what do we want to leave as a legacy for the next generation of people? One legacy can be, we fought a good fight against bad management or indeed poor governance of an institution that was set up, created and established by our forebears. That's a perfectly noble fight, and it's a fight that the union will be involved in, but it's a limited fight. Going forward, the question is, how can you provide the things that you want the next generation of artists to see? And there has to be a reimagination of that. Otherwise, all you're going to do is have a row. You're essentially going to be boxing shadows for a very, very, very long time.
Are they looking into the fact that there is actually negligence that happened on the part of the trustees to not having shown due diligence when they did this repurposing of the building, in looking into what would happen when they did that, let alone all the rest of how they used funding that was due to the Actor Centre? Are they looking into, because there are duties that they're supposed to follow as trustees as well, and Andrew Subramanian hasn't. So,
I mean, they are actively looking at the question of, has good governance occurred? Have people asked the questions that should be asked of the management? Have they been in line with the policies and duties of the charity? They are asking those questions, and it has to be said, I have a lot of confidence in the Charity Commission investigators to be doing that in an organisation that doesn't have as many teeth as we might like and is certainly grossly under-resourced. So I am very confident. certainly in the 2 meetings that I've had with them, they have interrogated those questions with me and got my perspective, and likewise with the Actor Centre, the Actor Centre campaign as well. So yeah, they're looking at it all. They entirely concede that it is very, very strange for a solvent charity to be in a position that it's selling its essentially sole asset, not just its greatest asset, but its sole asset. They concede that it's strange. But ultimately, the charity has the right to do things badly. The Charity Commission is not there to regulate how well you do it. They're there to regulate what you do it. Do it badly.
Thank you for that Kafkaesque. Mandy, we have to move on. I know there are more questions now, but forgive me, we're not going to take them all. I want the last one to be that gentleman there. But I hear you that you want to ask questions, but we've got to keep to time. Johnny.
Hello, Paul. This is Johnny Guy Lewis here. I wanted to just pick up on what we heard earlier about this new incarnation of the Seven Dials Playhouse. The man Davey wanting to issue equity contracts. So my question to you is, how much leverage do you have over the new building now in terms of equity's relationship to what they're trying to do?
I mean, I have as much or as little leverage as I do over what the National Theatre does with their farm. I mean, the theatre, which is us as a union with the people they engage, and we negotiate rates of pay. I mean, that doesn't dictate what they do with their business model. What is very strange about their commitment to use equity contracts, and that has been given to me in writing. I mean, they've made that commitment. They have done it, to be frank, and I'm not saying anything to you that I haven't said to them, at a level that I do not believe is affordable in that building. So you're in a pie-in-the-sky situation. And I said this back to the Charity Commission as well. I, as a trade union official, I'm being offered an agreement that is financially unsustainable in a venue of that size and scale. Now, what leverage does that give me? No more and no less than I had the day before or the day after, because our agreements regulate the relationship between the artist and the engager, not between the union and anything more broadly. But at least it gives us some sort of relationship, and it's a commitment they've made. And you know, I don't understand how they will fulfil that commitment, but that's nevertheless the commitment they've made.
Paul, do you have time for a couple more quick ones, really quick?
I've got as much time as you like.
Okay.
I'm under no pressure.
Mark Wing Davey, forgive me, I'm just going to let this roll. Keep it really succinct, sir.
Yeah, this is Andrew Hawkins. I just wanted to check if the charity is sanctioned by the commissioners. Is there ultimately any kind of fine that they can be imposed with, which would provide some funds to start, help start something up somewhere else? Because money is going to be obviously an absolutely crucial factor in whatever evolves in the future.
Well, if you find the Seven Dials Playhouse, you're taking away money that they don't have. I mean, the disqualification is what we want. That's the sanction we want. We just want these people to be banned from ever being part of it again. But if you find them, they'll have just less money for even the silly stuff they're doing now. I'm going to move to Barnaby.
Hi. You mentioned, I think, if I heard correctly, that there's a responsibility on Equity's behalf to financially support the campaign. And I just wanted to know how much you got and where are you prepared to put it? Is it just for legal fees, or is it towards a new building, or yeah?
I'll be brutally honest. We've not got enough money to pay for a new central London building. We've got enough money for that. We would get ourselves a bigger office. I mean, but what there is there is a duty, and this is what Louise and the campaign are trying to do, is construct a vision for what that looks like, and we will provide some of the funding, and we will support you in finding the funding for what this looks like. Because the emergency, if I'm going to be blunt, is not about holding the people at Seven Dials Playhouse to account. The emergency is there are working class artists who need that support, who are not getting it day in, day out. That's what I mean. I understand the desire, and it's a noble desire, and it's not one that I think we should abandon to hold the Seven Dials Playhouse accountable. But ultimately, do you want an actor centre tomorrow or not? And if you want an actor centre tomorrow, you need to build it from the ground up again. That's where we are, and that's the bit that the union is, absolutely going to stand ready to put money into and support money being found for. How much we've got depends on the ambition and the scale and the credibility of what that campaign looks like. That's something that's in the hands of the grassroots campaigners who are part of the campaign. And I suppose it's not a direct answer to the previous question, because you're quite right. Like taking money off the actor centre is a bit of a sort of zero-sum game, but in reality, they do have the right to run a charity badly. They can manage a charity badly. That's not illegal. Governing it outside of the law, governing it in a grossly irresponsible, personally profitable way is illegal. Do I think those things are going to be found? Probably not. What I think the Charity Commission is at best going to do is say the right questions weren't asked. New trustees need to be brought in. This situation needs to be examined forensically in a very different way. That's the absolute best of what's going to go on here. So, in reality, if you want something to exist in 2 years' time, you have to be thinking outside of that building, outside of that space. And I want the union to be very supportive of that new vision. I'm not saying the fight to hold them accountable is dead, but what I am saying is let's not use this energy on a battle that will perhaps deliver limited reward.
Thank you, Paul. Aviona, do you want to read that one out?
It's just someone saying thank you.
Okay. Who knows for what? Yes.
Yes, I'm old enough, or of the right age, to remember when we were the first students of the Actors Centre. We met at the Drill Hall, which is now owned by RADA. We met at the old YM or YWCA, whichever it was. We met at different venues. Is there anything to stop us starting up again? I know it's slow, I know it's long, and I know it's expensive. Would Equity be able to put any money up, just maybe for the rental of whatever spaces we could find, so we get teachers who are prepared to start back teaching in these different venues? I know we'd have to find new venues. Back in the 70s, and we trod the streets and we leafleted and we clapped and we screamed until eventually the big names did the work to get the money. But we started on little things, maybe 5 different classes a week in 5 different venues.
Sure. Well, we very much hope that the Old Diorama, perhaps our friends at the Rudolf Steiner in Marylebone, that there may well be collaborative spaces who want to at least discuss it. Paul, quick answer to whether you've got any money in your pocket for us. I know the answer already, but I'm not going to spoil it.
I mean, the answer is we do have some money, and we're not going to say no. It depends on, size, scale, level, dates, times. But the answer is definitely not like this is somebody else's problem. The union has money, doesn't have an infinite supply. It's the subscriptions you all pay. But it's a really important campaign. Delivering affordable training, professional development for artists is really important. We're going to either directly deliver some money towards that, probably not all of it, but we can help, but we can also help you find other sources of funding. It's not going to deliver the old Actors Centre level of training, but it is going to help if we get a credible proposal from you as a community of people, not just those people who are giving hour after hour to the campaign. If we know that there's a broad grassroots demand for a particular type of training, that's absolutely something we can look at funding directly and supporting applications for.
Plus, of course, historically, we have to remember that the Actors Centre began at the end of the 70s. The building wasn't bought until the early 90s. So, the point, I think, is that you are making so well is to begin, and to find spaces and see what kind of momentum we can
And
create.
something quite different. An 84-year-old friend of mine got knocked over on the embankment tube the other day. We were meeting because we were going to the Marylebone Theatre. I kept stressing the accident did not happen there. They have been unbelievably brilliant to us. And therefore, you know, the young duty manager that day trained at what used to be Guildford School of Acting. It's a different name now at some university, but I know, and the manager rang me the other day to say, what happened to your friend? Well, she's had to have a total hip replacement. But it did not happen there, but we went to the concert there. So I can just say, they are stunningly empathetic.
Well, that's Rudolf Steiner for you. He's a good guy. Yeah, last one.
Paul, can you tell us in your quiet moments when you're sitting pondering this, what your thoughts are on the best move forward?
So I honestly think that there are three strands to where the campaign is. The easiest and most human strand is accountability for the trustees and the management. And that is kind of part of, that's the kind of first third. The second third is, how do you keep a community of people that have been motivated by a really important issue together? And how do you form an idea of who you are, no matter what happens, with vengeance, if you like, against the management and board of the Actor Centre? The third question is, what does that then lead to? So the third bit of your thing is, well, okay, we're here in 2035, and we are talking about the great success of the new provision of a different sort of training. What does that look like? And I can't answer that question. And you are an incredibly large and dynamic and committed campaign group who absolutely should hold to account the Seven Dials Playhouse or the Actor Centre trustees and management. But I think if you put all your eggs in that basket, it's going to be a hiding to nothing, to mix my metaphors. You're going to end up being phenomenally demoralised, and it will be, you know, presume that is lost. That's not to say you should stop fighting, but it is to presume that it's lost. The really important bit is keeping yourselves together, and also of building a new vision for what people want in 2035. And I really, really, really believe that you've got the dynamism, you've got the numbers, you've got the articulation to build something new and quite brave. And it's, you know, really awful to think that we have this incredible building, this incredible space, this incredible charity that people put so much into that has kind of, they've been essentially burned up and lost. But if I was to give any advice, it would be what happens in 2035, not what really happened in 2020. And if you put the energy into that, I think there will be a real lasting campaign and a lasting value to the artistic community, whether it be actors, stage management, or anybody else. So yeah, and when we've asked about how much money can the union put in, how much can we support, it depends on the credibility and the scale of that vision. Like, we will carry on supporting as we can the legal fees to challenge things, bits of advice, support with accountancy, with holding them to account. But you'd much rather spend your union subscriptions on building lifelong training for people tomorrow, not, you know, carrying on fighting a morally right, but ultimately potentially futile battle with the past. That would be my very blunt assessment.
Paul, we appreciate you. Thank you so much for being with us.